Going on, everyone? 84% of the S&P 500 closed down in the red today as the market was pretty weak and shaky all day long as expectations were sky high for this Nvidia earnings release, but they delivered, and they delivered big time. In today's video, we're going to dive deep into what happened with this Nvidia earnings release, its impact on the market for tomorrow, as well as how key information that we got today connects to the broader situation that we have going on in the market. On top of that, we have some pretty big news related to a $250 million investment from Toyota into the eVTOL company Joby, which is causing their shares to rocket, as well as the hot AI stock Tempus, and how some of its shareholders like Nancy Pelosi and Cathie Wood are set for a wild week as shares are down 20% today. We have a ton of great info for today. There should be some great moves for tomorrow. So besides that, Tom, let's get right to it.
Yeah, the overall market was pretty slow and choppy into that Nvidia earnings report. We can see how the SPY this morning ran up quite well, up to 592.50, but rejected back down and started selling off. It is coming back a little bit, though, as that Nvidia report did end up beating. And it was really nice to see Nvidia move up as much as they are, up to $140. And I will say, the longer I keep looking at their chart here, the more they keep going up. I wonder how high they will go before tomorrow. But Mike, they beat pretty much across the board. Their EPS and revenue beat expectations. We can see the revenue coming in at $44.06 billion versus expectations around $43.31 billion, and then the EPS at 96 cents versus the 93-cent estimate there. And it doesn't stop there. You know, Nvidia actually would have done a lot better in this quarter. They did say that they missed out on $2.5 billion on extra sales, that they missed out because of chip restrictions, where the Trump administration came out and they're requiring export licenses for their H20 processor chips. So that's going to be pretty huge there for them. And they did say that they missed out a little bit. So if those restrictions do end or something like that soon, it would be pretty awesome for Nvidia. But all around, Mike, the numbers were great, and the year-over-year percentages were great as well. Like, I know revenue beat expectations, but it was also good. 69% year-over-year, net income 26% year-over-year, and investors are loving it.
Seriously, and their largest segment, which is their data center business, grew 74% year over year. Their revenue went from $22.5 billion last year up to $39.1 billion this year, which is always nice to see. And like you said, Tom, all of this is happening as they basically got screwed over by the government too. So it's definitely a good day to be an Nvidia shareholder. Looking more closely at their stock, they are going into rocket mode here. And what's beautiful to see is that they are dragging the market up with them. Even SPY is getting a great bid in after hours. What is your take on this situation, and what should we watch going into tomorrow?
Yeah, looking at it here, I'm really glad to see him break 140. That's definitely going to be a big level that I watch for. If they do end up dipping back down a little bit or something, I will be watching for that to hold and to act as support. If we go out to like the daily chart of Nvidia, it's good to see them up in after hours as much as they are, but I am a little bit worried. There are still some big resistances coming up overhead, right around 144 to 145, and then even more closely overhead, right around 149 to 150 is going to be extremely crucial to watch out for. So keep your eyes on $150 coming up. If we can break 144 with some solid momentum, we can see over here that 144 was like right where Nvidia peaked in the middle of February. And then of course 150 has acted as solid resistance all around the end of last year.
And another thing too is that after a company reports earnings, just like Nvidia did, they have an earnings conference call where basically their executives, talk more specifically about like what is happening with this earnings release. And we also do tend to see big moves from that. So understand that Nvidia stock can continue to go like even stronger into rocket mode throughout after hours, or it can, definitely see some profit taking come in depending on how this event unfolds. It normally happens for some time, so that's just something to be aware of as the evening progresses. But there was also some news where Trump came out today and basically told chip software design companies that they cannot sell to Chinese companies anymore, and these stocks got smoked. So what is going on here?
Yeah, this continues the trend of the Trump administration targeting chip makers and just chips to China in general. And Synopsys and Cadence, they make software to help design chips. And it looks like those two stocks were definitely the main two flying down off this today. Whenever the news first came out, everybody was really worried this was going to put a huge dampening on Nvidia's earnings. But as we know, or as we said, it does target more of these software and chip design companies. So SNPS, we can see they had a massive drop today, closing down around 9%. Cadence was down quite a bit as well. So these two stocks are definitely in play in the short term. Whenever we go to the daily chart, I was eyeing up CDNS today, Mike, and I was like, wow, that drop comes right at the perfect time. They were at a massive resistance, and we can tell that whenever this company has dropped in the past, they have definitely continued down for weeks to months at a time in multiple different scenarios. So keep this one on the radar. I would not be surprised if it started to trade back down into the range below like 280 towards maybe even $250.
And I think there's a couple key things to take away from this situation. Of course, the first thing is, stocks like CDNS and SNPS are definitely in for a, rude awakening in the short term, which is definitely going to affect them. But I think there's also some connection to Nvidia here, where just like we saw earlier in the video, Nvidia had to eat nearly $4.5 billion in charges because of this whole H20 export situation with China, and they missed out on an additional $2.5 billion in sales that they would have had if this wasn't even a problem. If we continue to see more tensions and regulations with China, it definitely will have a bigger impact. So I think that's worth keeping in mind for like a medium to longer term sense here. And as we know with Trump news, it can come out at any time, and it certainly has a big impact. And I thought it was very interesting how in the FOMC minutes report today, Jerome Powell basically said, look guys, if inflation comes up and the economy also weakens, then we're going to be put in a bad position, and there won't be many good options that we'll have. And this ties into this recent Trump news in the sense where, we still do have a trade war happening, and if we do see inflation from this and the economy does not strengthen, that is going to put the Federal Reserve in a sticky situation, and as we all know, that will have a huge impact not only on the stock market, but also the economy as a whole.
Yeah, if we see inflation start to uptick, it'll definitely put Jerome Powell between a rock and a hard place, to say the least. And it's something that I think that it sounds like they're really playing up here. They keep talking about it, and it seems like that they're kind of expecting this to happen. And as we know, inflation expectations have been through the roof for 2025. So I cannot wait to see how the rest of this year plays out. It will be a fun time to trade. 2025 has already been a very fun year for traders. Just going and looking at the S&P. There's been a lot of opportunity both to the downside and the upside this year. So it's been pretty awesome. It's been a very volatile market as well. We've seen huge moves with the VIX already this year. And, the VIX is at pretty low levels again, Mike, at this lower range around like $15 to $19, where we've been seeing a lot of big jumps off of that. So it is worrying me a little bit that, let's just say that the tariff and the trade war situation does start to catch up and hurt the economy a little bit more, kind of like what Fed members might be alluding to here.
Yeah, we shall see. Either way, it's definitely going to be a great time for traders. So talking more about some specific action from today, ticker symbol JOBY is soaring to the heavens. They popped up by nearly 30% today on news where they received $250 million from Toyota, which is the first tranche of a $500 million deal that was previously announced with them. And basically, for those of you who don't know, Joby is a company that makes like electric VTOL aircraft. And they're going to be using this money as well as just their partnership with Toyota to enhance their manufacturing and production capabilities, as well as attain certifications for their technology. And yeah, the stock is booming off this news, and it had some great movement.
Yeah, 100%. I love to see Joby moving up like that, Mike, especially today, like where the SPY was slow and choppy, and we had this, I would say, bad price action to the downside today. I thought it was awesome to see some stocks like Joby starting to really pop off this morning and create a lot of buzz out there. And even like as it popped off, it had like a pretty good move from like $8.70 up towards like that $9 high of day there, even on that little end of day pop. But Joby is a pretty interesting company. These eVTOL aircrafts, which is vertical takeoff and landing, they've been really popping off. You know, we go look at Joby, we look at the daily chart of them. They have had a lot of crazy price action over the past year. So is ACHR, Archer Aviation. This one's been popping off too. So it's good to see these companies, you know, making deals and continuing to stay in the headlines. And I don't think that there's a better car manufacturer or a bigger name to partner with than Toyota. I know all the Ford fanboys are going to hit me in the comments for that one, though.
But yeah, either way, like the stock is crushing it off this news. Looking at it in terms of like a sense for potential setups, what are you seeing on the charts and what are some potential ways to play this?
The good thing I see is that it's at a clear and big psychological level at $9 a share. So for tomorrow, if we can have like a pretty clear breakout of that high of day, I think that's where like the main opportunity would be playing Joby up. There could be an opportunity if we do pull back for a potential dip buy here. Whenever I look at Joby and I go to the daily chart, I look at the other times in the past that they've popped off and they've definitely continued up for multiple days in a row before. But whenever I look at it, they have had periods where they pull back a lot as well. And if you're somebody that's like, okay, maybe I missed this big gap up with Joby, but I want to get in, but I don't want to buy in too high, maybe wait for like one of these periods where it could pull back. I'm sure within like the next week to couple weeks, we'll see a bit of a pullback from this news.
And naturally, with a company like this one, it is speculative, and that comes with a higher risk, but also higher reward. You know, like you're not going to see 30% up days out of a company like Apple, of course, but with Joby, you know, you can certainly see some explosive movement. And I do like how they are partnered with like a huge name, you could say, in the auto industry, Toyota, and they already have some pretty good things rolling. So we shall see. Either way, keep Joby close on the radar for potential scalps tomorrow, as well as some potential swings as the week goes by. But some other news today was actually associated with Tempus AI, and they got crushed. They're down nearly 20% on the day. What is going on here?
Not good for Nancy Pelosi or Kathy Wood. As we know, Nancy Pelosi has acquired a position on Tempus, and Kathy Wood has been buying this one up a lot in ARK as well. And whenever I look at Tempus, I'm like, wow, you know, they've been doing pretty good. They had that really nice run up, and everybody was praising Nancy Pelosi whenever they ran up to $90, but they got hit by a short seller report today. Not looking good. It looks like they ended up getting hit by Spruce Point Capital. They ended up coming out and saying that Tempus AI is obviously seeing a lot of trouble here. They really targeted their CEO, which I thought was interesting. They criticized their CEO, saying that he even has a history and record of disappointing public investors at some of his prior ventures like Starbelly.com, Groupon, and Inner Workings. Nonetheless, whenever we see short reports on companies, it can definitely cause a lot of selling pressure in the short term, and it looks like they're getting hit pretty hard here, considering that, you know, there's all these big names in here like Nancy Pelosi and Kathy Wood.
No doubt. So TEM has been one of the wildest stocks over the past year. Like you pointed out by looking at its chart, it has wild swings from, you could say, like $32 a share all the way up to, let's say, $92 per share just over the course of like a few weeks. And as we can see by today, like it certainly has that crazy movement to the downside as well. This news is definitely pretty rough, and I wouldn't be surprised if we did see a little bit of a continuation here, especially if this stock can keep good constant pressure on its lows, as that would cause a lot of the people who own this stock to continue to panic sell out. It would further strengthen the positioning of short sellers, and it would just increase panic overall, as well as just even further prevent more buying pressure from happening. Either way, looking at TEM, it's a volatile stock. It has big moves. The stock is in play. Keep it on watch, not only for tomorrow, but also throughout the rest of the week, because there's a lot of news here. There's an actionable catalyst, plus the stock is known for some of the wildest movement that we've seen.
Definitely. And I would say like a big area to watch for, I would say tomorrow and for the next couple trading days would be this range right around $47.50 to $50. We can see that whenever they reported earnings a couple weeks ago, there was a lot of crazy wicks around that time, and they ended up touching that like $47.50 low right there. So that will be on watch for the next couple days. Like if we could start to break below $52 tomorrow and head towards like 50 or $47.50, I think that could be a good short-term scalping opportunity, but it'll definitely be on play. And I was really happy to just see good movement today out of these couple stocks. You know, Tempus I know was to the downside, and that might not make some people too happy, but there is downside opportunity there. And then I was happy to see Joby moving as well to add some nice excitement into the market today.
Definitely. All right, well, looking closer at SPY for tomorrow, what are the key levels and analysis? I know Nvidia is definitely bringing in a lot of buying here, which is always good to see.
592.50 is on watch. I've had this as resistance for a little while here, and it actually bounced off of it pretty perfectly this morning and held up as pretty awesome resistance. 592.50 was the peak on SPY last Wednesday, so that is definitely going to be on watch again for tomorrow. If the SPY is going to get some good bullish price action going, ideally we break 592.50 and then head back up towards the recent high around 596. I think that would make for a great move tomorrow, and I think that's what a lot of traders will be looking for, considering that Nvidia is doing so well here. On a negative note, you know, if we do end up ripping under this low around the end of the day at 587, that would be a negative sign in my eyes, and I could see a larger sell-off ensue from that. But considering where Nvidia is right now, I wouldn't necessarily lean that way, but it is always possible. You never know what these stocks are going to do whenever you wake up the next day.
And then while Nvidia's earnings was definitely like the main event of the week, there are a handful of other important things to pay attention to. Looking at the economic schedule for tomorrow, we do have some GDP data set to release 1 hour before the market opens, so just keep that in mind and definitely check the news before you trade tomorrow at open because this data will be important. And then on Friday, we have some very exciting PCE data, which is the Fed's preferred inflation gauge. So that is also exciting to look out for. And then Tom, on top of that, we have a little bit of like a cherry on top earnings situation for tomorrow, as some pretty big moving companies like Costco and Marvel, ticker symbol MRVL, will report after the bell. So that's always nice to see.
Yeah, we get another chip stock there, and then I think Costco will be extremely influential right now. I know whenever Walmart reported earnings a couple weeks ago, we saw some pretty wild news about tariffs and them potentially raising prices and things of that nature. So I will definitely have my eyes on Costco very closely to see what they say about prices, consumer spending, and the tariffs. That will actually be a really nice cherry on top and something that I don't think is getting near enough attention. And just like looking at Costco's stock very quickly, they're like pretty close to all-time highs once again. I know that they dipped recently, but they're not too far off.
Yeah, and they have been crushing it. Like you said, they're a lot closer to all-time highs than I think a lot of people would expect. Since 2024, Costco stock went from like around $650 a share to at one point as high as like $1,080 per share, and it's still very close, sitting right around like 1,013. So we shall see, and definitely keep it close on the radar for tomorrow. But besides that, Tom, how about we get into some setups and predictions? A stock that is definitely close on my radar is OKLO, and it is to the downside. So some people might not want to hear that, but basically the way I look at OKLO right now is that quantum stocks have been slowing down a little bit over the past few days. They are still crushing it, don't get me wrong, but the rate at how much they are rising is slowing down, and that is what I'm specifically looking at. And with OKLO, they actually have some heavy resistance and a potential double top forming from February right around this like $59 to $56 area. I would love to see a rejection off of this and then it break below $53.80 for a potential trend reversal. In the worst case scenario where that doesn't happen and the stock just continues to rocket up, then okay, then the trade would just lose and it just gets cut quickly, and in that case it would be a small loss. But in the event we do see a rejection here, there could be a lot of reward potential where, depending on how strong this momentum develops, I wouldn't be surprised if it got back down to that like $50 to $51 area. So we shall see, and it's not just a play for tomorrow, but also throughout the rest of the week.
Oklo has been on fire in the short term, and it is close to some very key resistance, and that is a huge level that you mentioned up there around that like $56 to $60 range. So I will definitely be watching this one very closely over the next couple of days for a potential pullback there. But with my first setup, I'm looking at ARM to the upside for tomorrow. I'm looking at a nice continuation with Nvidia's earnings, And if we go and we zoom in on ARM from today, we can see that it was on fire intraday today, but especially in after hours with Nvidia's earnings, it's running up to a key resistance right around $140. If we can see a good continuation and break of 140, I'll keep watching it up. We can see on the Bookmap there is a major sell wall at that 140 mark with around 72,000 shares, and it's larger than almost any of the other levels that, let's say, ARM broke above today. 135 was pretty big, but we can see not near as dark red and not near as many shares were really stacked there. So 140 definitely on watch for the next couple of days with ARM for a breakout for me. And like I said, it's mainly a play off of the Nvidia continuation being in that chip sector.
I have to say that 140 level seriously does look like a brick wall for ARM here. So shout out to Bookmap. Thank you for these key levels. And as Tom pointed out, there is a lot of selling pressure overhead with this one. So definitely keep that level close on the radar. Another stock that is definitely close on watch is ILMN, and it is in a bullish way. We covered a big money trade on this one on May 9th, and the stock is starting to do pretty well. Basically, it was the 100 strike call options for December 19th of 2025. It was also technically a spread play, but either way, it's a bullish play. ILMN is starting to move up strongly. We're getting close to some recent resistance right around that $85 area, and I definitely like the strength that this stock is building and how quickly it recovered from that recent pullback just a few days ago.
That is a pretty good recovery there, and I would not be surprised to see it break above this recent resistance. I really do like the resistance, and there's a lot of stocks starting to break out in the short term, so I'll keep ILMN on the radar. I'm also watching Apple to the upside for tomorrow, and I'm watching a key $200 support. I've noticed that it's been straddling this level since the end of day yesterday, but at the same time, I am a little bit worried about it giving out. So if we wake up tomorrow and Apple is selling off under $200, maybe adapt to the downside. It might not be a bad move if that support breaks, but if we do get a good support hold on these Nvidia earnings and it does end up popping back up, I will be watching for that move mainly tomorrow. And of course, the overall market has been doing pretty well so far since Nvidia's earnings. Apple hasn't really enjoyed in the recovery yet, but keep your eyes on $200. This is a critical level for Apple.
Sounds good. Well, besides that, let's jump right into today's momentum plays. And with the first one, we have B2 Gold, BTG to the upside.
If BTG can break above at 345 right around its high of day today, then keep watching it up. As we can see, it's moving up very well in after hours. These gold stocks are doing great.
All right, with the next one, we have Asana, ASAN, also to the upside.
Yeah, very nice move, 2.24%. If they can break above 1840, keep watching them up right at their high of day. And I really like the way that they close pretty high as well.
And then with the last one, we have Cleveland Cliffs, CLF to the downside.
CLF has been selling off so hard in the short term. They closed just under $6 today. If they break under $5.95, then keep watching them to the downside.
All right, so we have these three stocks on the radar for potential continuations for tomorrow, if and only if they break through the levels listed. As always, make sure to have stop losses, because trading without a stop loss or just trading without managing your risk is definitely very dangerous. So keep that in mind. And besides that, Tom, it is now about that time for today's $1.1 million big money trade. And we are looking at ticker symbol FSLR. FSLR is First Solar, which is an American solar panel manufacturer. Basically, looking at this trade here, the trader bought the 165 strike call options that expire on July 18th of 2025. This is a $1.1 million trade where the more FSLR goes up, the more millions the trader will make. FSLR has been doing very well over recent months, but over the past few weeks, it has definitely pulled back, and it looks like the trader is definitely positioning themselves to profit off of this pullback. I really like the potential risk reward here, where if the stock fell below that 148 area, it could definitely be cut. But in a good bullish situation, depending on how much momentum it builds, the stock can certainly get to 170, 180, and maybe even back above 200 again, depending on how much the momentum builds.
That would be awesome to get back to around that key $200 mark on FSLR. And, it's been dipping a lot recently. I know that there's been some stuff going on with solar, and a lot of clean energy companies have been dipping a little bit in the short term from the Trump administration, but it might be providing some good dip buying opportunities. And FSLR is close to some very key supports. I really do like that 150 mark in the short term that you mentioned, and like right around 148. So I will be watching that very closely. And it's not a very long-term play either, expiring in around a month and a half. So it's a kind of like a short-term dip buy opportunity here and potential swing back to the upside. And I do think that some of these closer targets like 170 could be pretty attainable if we do see, a good turnaround. FSLR does have a lot of wild movement. Like whenever we zoom out on this company, I know that it seems like it's been down in the dumps recently, but I mean, as we zoom out further and further, we can tell that it's just been chopping to the upside in a pretty crazy way the past few years.
Seriously. So definitely keep it close on watch. But one thing I definitely did want to add is that, as I'm sure some people have already seen, with yesterday's big money trade with ETHA, the trader ended up exiting a portion of their position early and day trading it. They are still holding $6.165 million worth of their position, but we just wanted to add this information here just so everyone can stay informed. All open interest data lags by a day. So we just wanted to mention that so that everyone can stay informed. Around $6.165 million is still being held, and it's definitely looking very interesting. I know the stock pulled back a little bit today, but they have all the way out into December, so it should be interesting. But before we continue on, we also want to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Ike63 in the Stocked Up trading floor, who is a great member of the community and definitely deserves a shout out. Thank you so much for all of your activity and for being a great positive member of the community. Huge shout out to you, and keep up all of the great work going forward. If you guys are new to the channel, definitely consider obliterating that subscribe button to get our videos recommended to you more often. And as we know, this Nvidia earnings release will definitely add some volatility to the markets. So far, it has been very positive, but we also have a handful of other stocks moving in some very exciting ways, like Joby, TEM, and quite frankly, all of the other ones mentioned in tonight's video. If you guys are into short-term trading and you haven't already tried out Bookmap, definitely check out that first link in the description in the comments down below. It is basically like X-ray vision for the stock market, and like we covered with ARM today, it shows you literally exactly where the key buy and sell orders are stacked up at, which oftentimes act as key pivotal levels. Stocked Up viewers do save if you use the link in the description in the comments down below. A special offers icon appears. But besides that, thank you all so much for watching, and let's crush it in the market tomorrow.